So, okay. So I think about this Mishnah all the time, and here it is. Not just this week, not just preparing it. It's so critical, and I want to make sure we leave by 10 of. I really want to make sure we leave time to hear from everybody. So let's get going. We've got me. We've got a little from Eve, and we need. And this is stuff that I very much want you to process also. So Mishnah number 6, Yehoshua ben Prachia. I need my reading glasses. The Nitai ha'arabeli kiblu mehem. Yehoshua ben Prachia Omer. So Yehoshua ben Prachia, Nitai of Aravel, received the tradition from them, the previous zugot, the previous pairs. We discussed that before. Yehoshua ben Prachia says, so this is his aphorism. This is what he has to tell the world. Aseh lecha rav. I'm going to translate it literally. It's kind of like somebody else's, I don't think I can read some. What? Have you ever tried to put shave glass on with a shade? Well, it's kind of interesting. Okay, no, I can't. It's not right. So, okay. No, it's okay. I don't need it. I'm reading for just a second. So Yehoshua ben Prachia says, Aseh lecha rav, make for yourself a teacher. Uknei lecha chaver, and acquire for yourself a friend. V'heve dan et kol ha'adam lekaf zchut, and judge everybody favorably. Okay, this is worth its weight in gold. Make for yourself a teacher, or a rav, or a rabbi, or a teacher. Make for yourself a teacher. Acquire for yourself a friend, and judge everybody favorably. In order for us to do great things in this world, hi there, come on in, to do great things in this world, to build, to have children, to build businesses, to give back, to create in this world, we need a healthy ego. If we were just like free-floating, egoless beings, we wouldn't be driven to contribute and build the world. So when the Almighty crafts the human being, the Almighty crafts the human being with a strong sense of I, a strong sense of I, my life, my future. You're not super self-absorbed if you think about your life all the time, because you're meant to think about the quality of life and where you're going, and who you are, and are you building? Are you doing enough? Are you giving? This is how we create worlds. And we've talked so much, I'm sure even Rabbi Gadi have as well, which is we're partners. We're created imperfect by a perfect God in a obviously imperfect world to partner. We are not freeloaders. We're actively meant to partner. But if we didn't have a strong sense of I, we wouldn't be motivated. And so it's good. The ego is good, but the ego has a shadow side, just like all other things. And when the ego manifests itself in an unhealthy way, it can wreak havoc on our lives. We can be filled with resentment. We can get incredibly stuck in our stories. We can freeze. We can lose ourselves in negative thinking. We can see things very, very off, and they can feel so true to us. We can spend our whole lives until our death telling ourselves a story that's not true. But it certainly feels true when I am telling it to myself. This is Rav Dessler. Rav Eliyahu Dessler talks about two eyes, that the human being has an ego with a dual nature. We need it to do awesome things in the world, but we also get caught. We also can be victim to an ego that wreaks havoc on our lives. And I think there's not a person in this room who doesn't have like a storytelling mechanism inside of them that's keeping them stuck in some way. So something that some negative habitual thinking, some story you're telling yourself, some fears and doubts that are not really reflective of empirical reality, but they sure feel real to you. And they keep you stuck, they keep you resentful, they keep you distrusting, they keep you unhappy. And this is the light and the shadow of the ego. And this is illustrated, it's not in the class, but this is illustrated most powerfully by a medrash in the Midrash, where it says that, I'm using words like ego and Yetzer Hara interchangeably, where it says that the men of the Great Assembly cried out to the Almighty and said, the negative side, the shadow side of the ego is unmanageable. People are losing themselves in greed and lust and depression and anger and conflict, one between the other, and you fill in the blanks. The ego, the shadow side of the ego, or in the words of the Medrash, the Yetzer Hara, is unmanageable. We can't handle it anymore. God, give us the spiritual capacity to take it away from people. So God gives the men of the Great Assembly the spiritual capacity to I think it's the men of the Great Assembly, to capture the Yetzer Hara. So the sages capture the Yetzer Hara, capture the ego, and they capture it and put it in a jar. This is obviously metaphorical. And alas, they've captured the Yetzer Hara. And it's not wreaking havoc anymore, and people aren't jealous of each other, and people don't weave tales that keep them in dispute, and jealousy doesn't keep people from enjoying what another one has, and they're living right. And yet, when they wake up in the morning, there's not a baby born, there's not a business started. Everything is fallow. There is no creativity. There is no creation. You can't live. We need our egos to do great stuff. It's just that the shadow side is so powerful. And that's why I think, I'm sure I speak for all of us. And you too on Zoom, where, I'm making assumptions, but if we were to really talk to anybody in this room, the question of like, where is your habitual negative thinking keeping you in a stunted place? And I think we could all reflect on that, and we would have plenty to say. And nobody's immune from this. So this is the ego, and this is the shadow side of the ego. But here's what the beginning, what the sages are telling us at the get-go is, do not, like, I've said this stupid joke so many times, but it's so powerful and deep. And that is, my husband always says, what's the 614th mitzvah? Don't be an idiot, right? So you have to know what's going to make you great can bring you down. You have to know that your ego is light and it's dark, and you have to know that you can do, that you're put in this world to do great things, but you have as strong, if not stronger, a force that's going to keep you from doing them. And so, in the words of Rav Nachman of Breslov, the whole world is a very, very narrow bridge. You're put in this world to fulfill your potential, to take your strengths and bring them into the world, to manage your weaknesses and use them to bring healing to the world. You're put in this world to achieve something, but you've got to learn the 614th mitzvah with the Rambam and Rashi and all the commentaries, right? You have to know that you're fighting a battle within you. The Gemara says, the Talmud says, that the battle with the Yetzer Hara is greater than any external battle that a soldier will ever face. There's an incredible, I think it's Medrash, or it's in the Talmud, which is a wise man talking to soldiers who come back flushed from war victory. And he says, and the sages tell the soldiers, just so you know, the war has just begun. That's the child's play. The real war is the war within. And so a person has to know that they're, not only are they inherently subjective, but the nature of the ego, the shadow side of the ego, is it's always going to try to keep you safe and stuck. It's like, I once learned from a teacher in a book. His name is Rick Carson. He wrote a book called Taming Your Gremlin. It's a really, really amazing book. And he has you like draw the way your shadow ego, the way your gremlin speaks to you. But it's always going to try to keep you safe and stuck. Where it comes from in childhood, maybe it served you once upon a time in your childhood, but that's going down a really psychological road. But when we're staying with this Mishnah, what's really important is to understand, if I could really synopsize it in basic, don't trust your thinking. Don't trust yourself. It doesn't mean that you don't trust yourself because you are good and you have integrity. But when your negative voice is telling you, and everybody's is different. Mine goes into victimhood, right to victimhood. Like, it's, like, oh, it's them doing it, but everybody says something different to them. But if it's weaving a story that's keeping you stuck, if it's weaving a story that's keeping you in resentment, if it's weaving a story that is keeping you in perpetual conflict or not moving forward, not creating, you have to be suspicious of it. So this is a school of like psychological thought that we in Milwaukee with Rabbi Satorsky, we called innate health. There are some amazing books from the school of innate health. I can give you some interesting ones, but the basic point of innate health is you should always, when you're living in negativity, you have to know, at least intellectually, that your ego is weaving tales to keep you safe and stuck. Even if you can't do anything about it at that moment, at least you're shining the light of awareness onto that. And so this is what Rabbi Yehoshua and Rabbi Nitai of Arbel are addressing. Or no, I shouldn't say that. This is what Rabbi Yehoshua ben Pirkei is saying. He's saying life is fragile. The world is complicated. The world is a very narrow bridge. Don't travel it alone. Don't fall victim. Bless you. Don't believe your negative thinking. It's the work of the dark side of the moon, not to quote Roger Waters, because he's not a good guy. You don't like him, but it's the ego. It's the shadow side of the ego. Now, I've thought about this so much. I've taught it so much. I still mess up with this understanding every single day. So it's like really your life's work. But but what the sage is saying here is really trust that you're not objective, and trust that the shadow side of your ego it has two missions: keep you safe, keep you stuck. It's always going to say, come back here where it's warm and I lit a fire and there's cookies and hot chocolate and just stay here. But you've got work to do. You don't know when you're going to die, and B, we don't live forever. So the combination of having a finite life, that's not, even though the days are long, someone once told me, my friend Bobby Quall, I don't know if any of you know her husband, she said to me, with parenthood, the days are long, the years are short, right? So it's like life, like sometimes the days feel very long, but the life is short, and we don't know when it's going to end. So it's unbelievably important to do this work. Even though my negative stories and my negative thinking are incredibly seductive and they feel so real, and they actually, I'm addicted to them, because when I feel them, I feel like vindicated. I feel I'm right. I feel I'm the victim. I can stay safely in my story. So I'm actually, not only are they convincing, but I actually have intrinsic motive. No, what's the word I want? Like I actually want to believe them. Why? Because they keep me right. They keep me right. The resentment, the whatever, it keeps me the victim. It keeps me from action. So I'm actually addicted to them. So not only am I incredibly subjective and I can't trust myself, but I actually have an inbuilt desire to stay in those places. It's that hard. So what Rabbi Yehoshua ben Pirkei is saying is the most important, because don't forget, we talked about this, when it says in Pirkei Avot, when it says hu haya omer, he used to say, it's sort of like his mantra. It's like his last lecture. It's his, like, if you could tell somebody one thing, what would you tell them? So he's saying, Not you are in, you are subjective by nature. You want to stay there because it keeps you safe and the victim, or safe and vindicated, or whatever it is. And so you are obligated to bring into your life trusted people to give you objective feedback. That was all a precursor to the Mishnah. The Mishnah itself is, you are duty bound, you are obligated to bring people who care about you, not a lot, it doesn't have to be a party. It can be, it really here, according to his words, it's two people. It says, it doesn't say acquire for yourself friends. It doesn't say make for yourself rabbis. It says, make sure you have a teacher and a friend who will not just yes you, who will not just make you feel good, who will not say things because they don't want to rock the boat. If you, I think probably most of us struggle with trust a little bit, especially in today's world where it's like hard to know what to trust, and the ground under our feet sometimes feels fragile. But the imperative of finding these two relationships that you can trust are so critical, but they're different relationships. So now I want to look into, in 5 minutes, I want to look into what are these two relationships. They're not the same. The way you acquire them is not the same. I didn't even do this sheet, but the way you acquire them isn't the same. They are not the same. The way you acquire them is not the same. So the first one, let's take a look at the first one. The first one is Aseh Lecha Rav. I'm actually going to speak about the second one more. But what is a rabbi? What is a teacher? A teacher or a rabbi is not someone who tells you what to do. You don't say, I mean, if you spill a gallon of milk in your chicken soup, then you might want to call the rabbi. But this is not what it's talking about. This is saying that somebody, we did this Mishnah before, we talked about the English maze, that in our lives, we're like in our own English maze. We're in our own subjective experience. To have somebody who can, I mean, if we're really looking at this classically, like according to not just giving it an overlay of like modern psychology, but if we're really looking at this is really talking about somebody who has the whole picture of Torah, who sees the whole picture, who can pull out and see the whole English maze and is not in your subjectivity, but can can pull out and see the whole picture, but they're coming from deep, profound knowledge. So in other words, finding somebody, in this case, deeply immersed in the whole picture of Torah, who can pull out and understand the whole picture, and from there, still not tell you what to do. It is a misnomer. It's a satire about the religious world that the rabbi tells you what to do. I go in, Rabbi, should I have another baby? Have 5 more. No, that is a satire. It's not how it works. That is not what a rabbi does. And that's why, if you want to understand the role of the rabbi, then you have to look at the verb. How do you acquire it? So the word that's used for the acquisition is aseh, make for yourself a rabbi. And the sage and the commentaries tell us, read it 2 ways. Aseh lecha rav, make for yourself a rabbi, and aseh lecha rav, and make yourself a rabbi. So what does that mean? You have to read it according to its basic meaning. It means you need somebody who is very well versed, wise, very well versed in Judaism, who sees the forest through the trees and can help you navigate. But they don't tell you what to do. A good rabbi, just like you can insert leader, a good leader creates leaders. A bad leader creates followers. So that's why the word is aseh. A good rabbi will make you. In other words, And I see this, we've talked about this, Stephen, we've talked about coaching, that coaching is premised on something that I actually really, really believe in. It's a little different than psychology or therapy. It's a little bit different. But I've really seen it to be true, which is that people really, truly, they have neshama, they are neshamas, and people know what to do in their lives. They actually have their own answers. And you can have the most incredible advice. Jill, here's what you have to do, right? I can tell Jill, here's what you have to do. But Jill knows, sorry to use a guinea pig, only Jill really knows what Jill needs to do. Now, why do we rely on other people so much? Like, tell me what to do. People, when I say this in coaching, people will often say, but I kind of like want you to like tell me what to do, because we're so disconnected from that GPS, that neshama within us, that we often think we have to rely on other people. But I've seen it with my own eyes. I hired a coach. I was talking to Eve about this. Fantastic. Like the loveliest person, a wealth of all sorts of NLP knowledge, neuro linguistic programming, like really fantastic. She went right to techniques. I didn't, it wasn't about my wisdom. And I just, boom. Because even though she might have answers, they're not mine. So I really do believe that the role of the coach is to set the stage where they help you move beyond your habitual thinking, and listen and call out when your thinking is tripping you up. Like you can almost call it a thinking partner that helps make you the leader of your life, because you do know what to do. You do know what the next step is. But we live in a passive recipient of wisdom culture, and we also don't always trust, because we're not always in touch with that strong, that neshama presence in our lives. So a selach harav means a good rav will help you, will help you understand that you actually really know what's best for your life. So a selacha means a good rabbi will make you, and it also means that you make the rabbi. And what does that mean? That means that I wrote this down. I think I wrote it in the form of a quote. That I think I wrote it in the form of a quote, that the level of the student does indeed make the teacher. That this is somewhere in our tradition, and I don't know where it says this. Oh, I think it's Pirkei Avot, that I learned so much. Hi, sorry, I'm sorry. I learned so much. I learned so much from my teachers. I learned so much from X, but from my students, I've learned most of all. What does that mean? Not just that I can say, and I think Eve would agree, like we learned so much from you, but it's also the questions that you ask. If you're really pursuing the right thing, then it helps me tap into my wisdom to help you. So it's very mutual, and it's based on the basic concept that human beings are actually the leaders of their lives. They are wise and they know what they need to do. Sometimes you need to go to a consultant, right? Like after class, Stephen's going to help me with small business consulting. That's a consultant. And sometimes you need to go to a therapist, but very often you need someone to be so present with you that they help you uncover your own wisdom. A rabbi makes you, and you, with the questions you ask and the process you go through with them, make the rabbi. That's number one. That's somebody who has wisdom, who sees the forest through the trees, who sees the whole English maze, can pull out and stand with you as you navigate the subjectivity of your life. But I think the second one is most important. I want to go through that and just tie it to the third part of the Mishnah. And then I'd like Eve to just say a little bit about this mitzvah. We might, maybe we won't get to it's so deep and so rich, we probably won't. But the truth is, a lot of it is addressed in Eve's interpersonal class. But I think this is very, very important. It says, buy for yourself a friend. Liknot, the root, kuf nun hey, is kaneh lecha chaver, is from the verb liknot, which means to buy. Like buy yourself a friend. You can get one very cheap on Amazon, right? Like, right? I don't have Amazon in Israel. There sort of is one, right? So buy for yourself a friend. What does that mean? So we don't have tons of time, but I want to say a few things about friendship. And even if you have one of these people in your life, hopefully you have two or three, but even if you have one, there's nothing like it in the world. And I think more than one is good, but it doesn't say multiple, because at the very least, make sure you have one. And I think it's the most power. Remember, it's not that a Rav doesn't have a Yetzer Hara. They do. But in fact, commensurate with the greatness is the Yetzer Hara. It has to be that way, or else the rabbi doesn't have free choice. If the rabbi has this incredible wisdom, doesn't mean that all rabbis are like horrible and scared, God forbid, but it does mean that in order for the rabbi to have free choice, the rabbi has to have a Yetzer Hara on par with his wisdom, because otherwise there would be no free choice. Everyone's got to have Yetzer Hara that is like can be in the ring with your level that you're at, or else you don't have free choice to choose life, to choose good. So that is true. But if the rabbi is somewhat apart and helping you gain objectivity, your friend's she's just as crazy as you, right? Your friend also is in the thick of it all, but they don't have your Yetzer Hara. Your friend has a Yetzer Hara as big as yours. Your friend's ego is tripping her up as much as yours is. Your friend's in it with you. It's a non-hierarchical relationship. They don't have your Yetzer Hara. And what we learn in the Mishnah is Esahu Chacham, Esahu Gibor, Hakovesh es Yitzro. Who is the mighty one, the one that is vanquishing their own voice? Meaning, it doesn't mean that I'm not tripping myself up with my own shadow side of my ego all the time, but mine and yours are not the same. So I can say to you, I love you, and I think you're tripping yourself up big time right here, right? I care about you. We have a trusting bond, and I see that you're hurting yourself here. I see you're staying in a story that's hurting you right now. So the friend has a Yetzer Hara just like you. So does the rabbi, but it's a little bit different. But it's not yours, and that's critical. Yeah, Mike. It doesn't say that it can't be your spouse, but I don't know. We'd have to weigh in on that one. Maybe we'll take a poll on that one at the end of the class. I don't know. I have my thoughts, but I would be more interested in what other people think about that. Can we poll Mike's question at the end of class? Because that's a really good question. Yeah, I don't know. But this is what's so powerful about a real friend, a friend that you can trust, a friend who you really can trust. Is a verse in Proverbs. Listen to this. Faithful are the chastisements of a friend, while burdensome are the kisses of an enemy. If someone doesn't have your back, their being wonderful to you means nothing. In fact, sometimes it's not good at all. So don't feel that, this is so true in our culture, don't feel that kisses are indicative of intimacy. Don't feel that according to this Mishnah, you might only have one person who has your back. And hopefully you have more than one, but you might not. You are commanded to find one. That might mean that there's only one person. So burdensome are the kisses of an enemy. Burdensome are the ego building, is the love, is the support, is the of someone who doesn't have your back. It's not, beware. That's really what the Proverbs, that's what King Solomon is saying. But faithful are the chastisements of a friend who has your back, who does not have your Yetzer Hara. I think spouses might share they might like get stuck in the same drawer in the bedroom. I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not liking the idea of spouse, but I might be wrong. Some people have very, very strong friendships with their spouse. I'm not sure. This is a group decision. This is a democracy. But but the idea that someone who's in the ring with you, who's as complicated as you are, who's as blocked as you are, who whatever, but they don't have your unique Yetzer Hara. That's what Hakovish as Yitzro means, who knows their own voice. Who's the wise one? The one who, or the mighty one, the one who starts to understand, oh, there it goes again, my victim, or there it goes again, my people pleaser. I know a few people pleasers in this room, right? Like, there I go to, like, everyone. This is a wonderful book that my sister and I discovered. Oh, I can't remember, but he has this assessment that you can kind of find out you're like the way yours speaks to you the most. But I think there's 11 of them, but everyone's got wait. So you need to start to identify yours. But what the mission is saying to you is, don't do it alone. You need these two relationships. So, kanei lechaver, buy for yourself a friend. What does it mean to buy? Kanei, liknot also means to invest. Fight for this relationship. Invest of yourself. If you want a good friend, you've got to be a good friend. I had to learn this the hard way because I'm a massive introvert. And my best friend, Donna Margolis, said, you need to work harder in our relationship, because she's an extrovert and I'm an introvert. So she said, I need more from you. Anyone who's an introvert can understand this. It's like, sometimes, so it doesn't say make for yourself a friend. It says, when it comes to finding this one relationship, you have to invest of yourself. You've got to be the friend too. You've got to fight for this relationship. You've got to invest your time, your energy. You've got to invest your honesty. You also have to invest in telling them things they don't want to hear, right? Burdensome are the kisses of an enemy. Faithful are the chastisements of a friend. So you want your best friend to call you out. I don't like what I'm seeing. There, even a coach is not, you don't hire a coach to keep you comfortable in your story. You hire a coach to create tension and discomfort in your story, so you can shake it up and look at it and say, oh, wow, this is really keeping me stuck. So these are two relationships, and both of them are active verbs. Both of them are saying, make for yourself, invest of yourself, acquire for yourself. In other words, don't sit passively, which is another one of my problems, is passivity. Don't sit passively and wait for the rabbi and the amazing friend who will call you out, who you should love because you have such a bond, want them to call you out, actually want them to, and call them out too, because that's this relationship. So the word is active. You have to actively create these two relationships. I confess that the first one I do not feel I have, but I think that it's a problem. Yeah, I mean, we have people we ask things to, but someone should know you. Selach Harav doesn't mean someone you call once a year. It means there should be a rabbi. I mean, there are two great ones, in this organization that they won't tell you what to do. It's not, yes, you can do it. Yes, you can, but I don't want to. Yes, you can. That's not what a Rav does. A Rav knows you. And it's just that they're not in it with you. They pull out and they can direct you in your healthiest way, not the empirically healthiest way, but your healthiest way. So I'm going to end there. It's yeah. Yeah, I think Rav means teacher. I mean, yeah. Yeah, I mean, they in the English translate. I mean, Rav does mean rabbi, but in the English translation, it does not say accept a rabbi upon yourself. It says accept a teacher. So it probably means both a little bit. But somebody whose wisdom is trustable wisdom, and the breadth and the depth of the wisdom is something that allows you to trust them and trust that they have your best interest in mind as they see you from, okay, hold on one second, Marilyn, because I want to leave. Oh, shoot. I always do that. Okay, so hold on, Marilyn, hold the thought. So of course, it's tied into the second part of the Mishnah, which I guess Eve will just do a little bit of, which is don't psychoanalyze what I just did, because there's nothing, I just like to talk. But but so that's it. You're subjective, and that's why what we're gonna find out from Eve about judging favorably maybe just is the subjectivity of who we are. So Eve, this is the third leg of the Mishnah. And then Marilyn, we're gonna take your thing. Yeah.
Nice to share the podium with you.
Well, I definitely
My teacher, she really is.
I hogged it. I'm sorry.
It was perfect. So I'm supposed to yes. Okay, hi everyone. Different perspective. So first of all, I had a lot I wanted to jump in and say, but I was holding back. But just a word on the last piece about having a friend. So I think this is something that we could all maybe think about in our lives, as we have how many hundreds or thousands of friends on Facebook. And yet in your moment, sometimes we just feel so alone, right? Not you. But one of my favorite musicians in the Jewish world, Eli Spiegel, he has this very powerful song, and he's someone that has struggled with everything that we struggle with, and he sings about it. And the words that he says are, have you ever felt lonely with people all around you? No one's found you. And when I'm feeling down in the dumps and I'm like depressed and I'm sad, I like play that song again and again until my husband's like, okay, I get it. You need me right now, but it's just like wallowing, like, hello. So it really, it does take effort. And I like your question, because something to think about. I think a spouse, a partner is really a friend. That's what we're getting at, really, to be one. So there's extra challenge in that because there's extra potential. Okay, so let's talk about the third part of the Mishnah, which is judging favorably. So just read the Mishnah. Just read what's the last part.
Well, make yourself rabbi, for yourself a friend, and
is it have done as called done?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, just read it in English is fine.
Oh,
okay, so notice that it doesn't say don't judge. Okay, because judgment is very vital. And what were the two things that you started saying that all of this keeps you safe? Or two things, keeps you safe and stuck. So the judgment is to keep us safe. We all need judgment. We need to decipher, is this safe? Is it not? Is this good for me? Is it bad? Right? We're always judging. And I love how you put it. Like, I always say, I'm not judgmental, but thank you for bringing it to reality. We all are judgmental. So it's not saying don't judge, because it's human nature to judge, but how to judge. So judge favorably, right? Don't judge a book by its cover. We all do that. We sum everyone up in one split second. I have to think about it a little bit more, because we say over here at L'chaim, this is a completely non-judgmental place. Now I want to, you've kind of given me some food for thought. How could we really, really be a non-judgmental place? Because this Friday night we had 60 people and we love everyone and we know everyone and it's such a homey environment, but there were two ladies that walked in that had never been here. So was there judgment? Of course there was judgment. So how could we really, really up our game to say we really do not judge, or maybe we should change it to we judge favorably. So judgment is necessary. It's here to protect us. And just raise your hand if you were in my class. I did a whole hour class on judgment. So some of you were here, so we're not going to have so much time to go into it, but you could get the recording. And there was a lot that we spoke about, but something that we did speak about. Well, first of all, this mitzvah, this is not just like a fluffy, don't judge people, judge favorably. It's one of the 613 mitzvot. And it's where does this happen? Where does judgment happen? Where does it happen? Spoke about gossip, happens here. Where does judgment happen? Here. It's such a hard mitzvah. It's not like we're going to do it. It just happens. It's a mitzvah of the mind, which takes it to a whole other level. How hard is it to kind of control your thoughts, right? When God says love, you should love Hashem, you should love your fellow as you love yourself. Those are the harder ones to do. Give charity, that's easier. It's like an action. But this is something that it starts thought, then actions, then words, right? That's what Rabbi Tversky says, right? A thought pops into your head. How do you fight it? What are you supposed to do about it? It's there. Hello, welcome. Make yourself comfortable. Like, you have to acknowledge the thoughts and the feelings and everything that you're holding, right? So how to deal with it. So I'll just tell you guys what we discussed in a nutshell is that there is space to judge non-favorably. We don't judge everyone favorably. We don't judge wicked people favorably. Okay, and this is because it kind of gives power to them. So we need to understand, who is this person in front of me that seems to be messing up? And you need to make a judgment call on how to judge this person. That's the actual mitzvah. We don't judge wicked actions we don't judge wicked people favorably. And that's kind of where we need to really make a quick call. And okay, let's just talk about this week's Torah portion for 1 minute. A lot of you were in class this week. We spoke about, it was a very bumpy ride this week, the Parsha. And an example that we've spoken about a couple times in class was this very heated topic. Joseph and the wife of Potiphar, she is seducing him. It is very challenging. He's ready to give up. And then he sees his father's face and he strengthens himself and he runs away from her. He's ready, he couldn't take it anymore. I mean, the Midrash says that she was changing her lingerie 3 times a day. Like, it was so hard. He was 17 years old. It was almost impossible. And she grabbed him on his beged. We spoke about this. Beged means clothing, but the word beged also means traitor, boged, right? And she's like, you're not going to succeed. You're in the pit of immorality. You might as well just give up right now. You think you're so perfect? And he was like, help. So he runs and he leaves his coat behind. Now, what does she do? She takes his coat and she runs to her husband and she says, Joseph was so immoral with me. I even have his coat. He was getting undressed in front of me. He was trying to seduce me. She turns the whole thing around. So this week in our Parsha class here, we spoke about the Me Too movement, right? And we know how powerful that movement has been and how many people have come forth and got support. And it's incredible, right? Like, what happened in the past will not happen anymore because there is this infrastructure to support victims. And people will think twice before harming someone, right? But what is the flip side of that? And we started speaking about it, but I think we got distracted. But what happens in this story with Joseph and the wife of Potiphar, right? He is thrown into jail for 22 years, okay? Now, if Potiphar really, really thought that Joseph was immoral with his wife, what would he have done? Killed him. So what is actually happening here? He's not judging. He didn't jump to conclusions in 1 second. What happened, so I was reading some of the Midrashim, is that they had a daughter that was actually, do you know that it was Dinah? They adopted Dinah. Crazy. There's a lot of like things that you don't know about in the Parsha, like the backstory. So Dinah, so his cousin, okay? His first cousin was dropped by an angel into the palace of Potiphar, and her name is Osnat, okay, another name. And she actually marries Joseph in the end, okay? So what happens is she goes and tells the truth to her father. So he knows because now we're given a situation, it looks terrible. The wife is saying, this is what happened. But he knows that Joseph is a righteous person. He's seen it. Joseph is so honest. He's so great. He rose to every position in the palace and in every way. Even in the jail, he was rising to the top, the leadership of the jail. Right? He was just such a great person, a holy person. He was called Yosef, the righteous Yosef, Yosef HaTzadik. So how could Potiphar judge him in a split second? Someone says something, we're just going to jump to conclusions. How can you judge someone that's righteous? So he actually was amazing. He was elevated in that moment, and he judged him for the good, gave him the benefit of the doubt. And because of that, the destiny of the Jewish people was able to come to fruition. So judgment is so important that we weigh in the moment and really take all the details in. So I don't know if there's more time. You tell me. We could keep going, but you want to do some, I'll tell you guys some of the tools. You want to have time for questions also. Okay. I'll tell you guys some of the tools that we discussed when we spoke about judging favorably, if anyone remembers any of the tools. Okay, otherwise we'll do a little review. So one of them was using the power of the paradigm shift. This is something we spoke about on our trips to Israel, right? Seeing a situation, and in the moment, like we just add one little detail and the whole story could change, right? That's like what Thomas Kuhn, who he coins that term, the paradigm shift, right? Stephen Covey writes about it. So we spoke about that power to bring in one little detail and really shift the whole perspective. So that was one thing we spoke about. Something else we spoke about was the power of humility. Because, okay, and here's a great quote. Don't judge someone else because he sins differently to you. Mm-hmm. We all sin. We're all imperfect. And our judgment comes usually from a place of weakness, because what we see in someone might really rub us the wrong way, because maybe we're even struggling with we're looking in a mirror, right? That's usually where the worst judgment comes. That thing that your spouse does that annoys the heck out of you, it's because you have that thing. It's hard for you because you have that issue also, okay? So that is the humility of saying, this is bothering me, it's triggering me. Let's look at myself in the mirror. Am I perfect? I'm not. Have I ever come late? Have I ever spoken badly? Have I ever messed up? Yes, 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 yes. So it makes you a little bit more humble and human to see someone else in their story, right? See someone else. They have their, right? And as we said, we come into whatever situation, we're seeing someone in chapter 3 of their lives. We don't know where they've come from. We don't know where they're going. We're just like, coming in a little part, and we have no idea what they've been through and how hard it's been. And when we say don't judge, right? What's the other thing? I think it's in Pirkei Avot. It says, you can never, don't judge someone unless you've stood in their shoes. Mm-hmm. Right. Now, could you ever stand in someone else's shoes? No, never. Like you don't have the same DNA, the same upbringing, the same family, the same hardships, the same genetics. Everything is we can never judge. So like, if you want to judge, you have to step in their shoes to really, okay, now let's end it with this. Who is the real judge? God. So it's almost like God's like, I got this. I got this. You could take a rest. I don't need your help. Okay. And here is the whipped cream on top. God tells us if we judge others favorably, then God will judge us favorably. Is that not enough? When we all come to Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur and we say, we have messed up every year, right? And God still gives us another year, right? He gives us a chance. He lets it go. He forgives. He loves us unconditionally. Let's be a little bit more godlike, right? That's really the ultimate goal that we're supposed to become. We're supposed to emulate God's ways. God is forgiving. He's a merciful Father in heaven. We also need to become forgiving. Let things go. Turn a blind eye, right? Just like, I didn't see that, or unless it's important to speak up, unless it's important to really get involved. But there's a lot that we don't need to judge, not our job. We don't need to take it on ourselves. I'm going to end here because I want you to have time for questions, but come here. Maybe we'll do it together.
God is your shadow. That's the way you right. People on Zoom and Kate.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So if our Yetzer Hara is the thing that ultimately is going to elevate us, and it's the thing that we need to overcome to become great, but if our Yetzer Hara isn't loud, it's not obvious, how do we figure out what our Yetzer Hara is? Like, I know that some people have a negative voice, and you can pinpoint what it is that you struggle with,
Broad.
What if you don't have an obvious one and it's not loud? And how do you ultimately become what you're supposed to become? You don't have that loud.
How do you figure it out? Very loud.
It's a really good question, and I really think it's what Ali said about like the coaching. Like when you find the answers within, no one knows what your Yetzer Hara is but you,
How do I find it out though?
because you're in a constant battle. What are you battling with? Like,
Yeah,
I don't know. Not that I don't have them.
Right.
I'm just saying I don't really know.
it's really the voices, right? It's the voices in your head. No one hears the voices. No one's pulling you away. I see the Yetzer Hara very clearly. Sometimes I see it. I can see it in someone else. I'll give you an example. I'm interviewing a woman for the trip to Israel. And this is a true story. This true story happened to me in Denver. Great Jewish woman with she just needed this. It was her time. And she had every excuse not to do it because the Yetzer Hara knew trouble, she's going to grow. Okay, beep. Like it was, I mean, she had every excuse. The dog was sick, the this, but I was like, I'll take care of the dog. I was like, there's no way. It was 100% the Yetzer Hara that was working so hard to get her not to step in, because taking a step in would mean she would grow. And that was that was her. It was so clear to me. I saw it like a very healthy, strong Yetzer Hara working hard. I told her. Right. The evil inclination. Translation. The negative force. But we actually, whoever's in my class, right? You guys remember we did a whole class on the evil inclination, the Yetzer Hara. And what the quote of our sages is that everyone has this Yetzer Hara. It's your own worst sworn enemy. It knows you so well from the inside that it knows, Katie, how to work with you. Like it is custom designed, like a custom made suit for you. So it's almost impossible to beat the Yetzer Hara if you let it in. So our sages tell us that the Yetzer Hara encroaches by the door. Don't let it in. The second you open the door and make space for it to come in, it takes all over. Do you guys remember like the great stories we spoke about? You have to listen to this recording. It's custom designed for you. Okay. So the Yetzer Hara, I'll send it to you. Yeah, but that's it. The Yetzer Hara, it's there. Every single person has it. Yeah, it's because it's like a glove. The Yetzer Hara is like a sleazy car salesman. Like seriously, it catches you at your weakest point. That's how it is, and it comes in, and once you let it in, it takes over, and it's very, very hard to pull yourself out of the clutches. It's complicated, but the first step is acknowledging it. It's like, as I said, like, hello, I see you, like, it's there. So you might as well acknowledge it, and then you could learn ways to fight it. And there are ways. Question. Judge and what we don't judge. Right.
Evil people, it's separate, but like everybody has a story,
Right.
or whatnot.
Right.
But sometimes I'm like, well, we had a horrible upbringing.
Right.
So
Right. Every murderer has a mother that's saying, he was such a good little giggle. Right. It's very. Do you want to talk to this? I don't know. I think there is. I think there evil exists in the world. So that is a reality. There. Right. Right.
Like sometimes I can say that's all they are capable of, because that's all
Right.
no role model. I mean, they say God forgives, and
Right, right, right. Well, a mantra that I shared here, which is not for evil people, but let's take it down a notch. Human beings, Beinonim, regular, mediocre, like you and me, like all of us here, we're not righteous and we're not evil. So most people that we're encountering in the world. So this is the mantra. Okay, say this to yourself when you see something that disturbs you. It must be hard for them. Right? It just kind of takes the air out of the anger. Like, it must be hard for them. Like, we don't get it. That doesn't work for evil people though, because by saying that, we're giving power to them. We're saying it's okay. And it's not okay to do something that is not okay. So I think I'm with you. It's kind of hard to make that judgment call. I don't know. How do you do that?
Hey, Katie, ask the father what you're used to. You're the friend that you
I don't know. Do you have a better idea? That was, yeah.
But that's somebody's like worst.
Mm.
Life is a big spectrum. So, I mean, murder is one thing, but even by the worst thing, there's so much.
Right. And even let's say a murderer, like let's take that example. Do you guys all eat Dave's Killer Bread? Okay,
Yeah,
it was made in Portland. Okay, my husband was the rabbi that gave it the hefsher, right?
Kosher hot dog bun, but never.
Right. Yes.
So you ate it with Dave's. It's really good stuff. So do you know why he's called Dave's Killer Bread? Because he was a killer. He sat in jail for 20 years and he developed this, and he did teshuvah, repentance. Like, so how do you, I mean, it's, so as you said, you could only judge actions, not a person. Maybe we can't, maybe we should judge a person and not actions. He did a terrible action. And even a terrible thing you could still do teshuvah, repentance.
Wow,
Could change your
wow.
ways. So your question is very good and very, very deep. And I don't have a good answer. I'm going to think about it a little bit. It's an excellent question.
Yeah. Wow.
Well, it has a very negative impact.
Well, it doesn't really have impact at all.
Mm.
I'm talking about the average person as you are right now.
So the judgment really doesn't say so much about
More about us. Doesn't it?
Right. That, to your point, David had a very interesting experience with this rabbi last week. And David asked him, Rabbi, why, he asked, I'm kind of saying anonymously, he asked about a specific rabbi who got in a lot of trouble in the law. How can people still look up to him and so disgusting and how do people look up to him? And the rabbi's response to it was, how does this affect your life? Personally, does this actually affect your life? More like personally, and he said, no, it doesn't affect my life. So then the rabbi said, so then what are you really asking? If that's your point, like, what are you really asking? Like, benefit, it's not part. And so the rabbi challenged him, what are you really asking? And that was very like, they give it to me. I'm not really asking that question. The question I asked is not, the judgment that I have, the question that I asked is not really, it's not really, and then it's kind of
Allie, can you hear me? responsibility everywhere.
Allie, can you hear me? It's Trudy.
So I agree with you. I mean, I think it does fit the
So
So I'm not thinking about it wrong, but the idea that what you're, it's an immediate judgment, or an immediate concern of wrong.
My husband mentioned a couple weeks ago, there was a dilemma that in the Jewish world, in the ultra Orthodox world, unfortunately, there was an accusation about on this great writer in the
Yeah.
Jewish world. Like we have like at least a dozen of his books on our bookshelf, and this accusation came out against him, and so we were all up in arms right away, judged, right? I mean, where there's smoke, there's fire usually, right? We didn't hear what the outcome was yet, but he was being held and a lot of allegations. So I'll tell you what I did. That was, I don't know if it was my best moment, but I stomped into the bookstore on Toohey Avenue. And I said, yeah, children's writer. And I took a look around. I saw his books were still on the shelves, and they're probably not on the shelves anymore. But I went up to I could be really strong sometimes. I don't know. I felt bad afterwards. I think this was not my best moment. I went up to the owner and I said, "Are you going to take down the books of this writer? You can't sell them." And he put me in my place. It was fresh off the press. It was like the day that it came out. He said, "I don't know what we're going to do, but right now, all I could think of is his wife and his children." And he put me in my place because I was so, like, I went into judgment mode. So I think bottom line, and to really end this class, I think what we could all think of, because what I took home, I went into my car, I felt like an idiot, right? Because I mean, eventually, I mean, all the big bookstores took them off the shelves, and people are taking it very seriously because we want to create a safe world. It's so important. And I wanted to fight the fight, but of course. But really, I think there's a place for us to stay in our lane and not to be the judges. There's lots of people fighting it, and the courts are in full swing. Like, why did I think I needed to say my piece and to be a judge? There's plenty of people doing it. We don't want to be judgy people, right? So that's kind of what I took from it. I took like, Eve, like, take a step back, stay in your lane. Like, you don't want to be that judgy person. It's usually,
Don't know.
yeah, just because it's in the news doesn't mean it's true. Right. Right.
Yeah.
It did, but I mean, and going back to like the whole Me Too, like it was so powerful what it did for so many victims, but there were also people whose lives were destroyed that were found innocent, but they were never able to reclaim their lives. So there is the other side that we have. That's why, like, don't go into judgment mode right away.
Oh, no. I mean,
Yeah.
if you're I don't know if you remember this.
I read the article. I was like, where there's smoke, there's fire. But he put me in my place, and I did, and I haven't really followed up on where things are at with this particular writer. For the time being, I mean, I did pull his books off the shelves in my own home. I could,
Well, watch the Woody Allen film, and it's are you gonna still
Michael
Why?
Jackson, my husband's
are you still gonna appreciate a Picasso? That's a deep question.
Basically all culture and art. Yeah, you.
We're good.
very good,
Right.
very good.
So, what, I mean, we don't know if you remember that. It's kind of like,
Right, but it was important to take a stand. And this is where judgment comes in, right? Well, it was important. Great
Oh,
rabbis and
I think
leaders,
Trudy wants to say
such a strong stand to say, we don't know
Sure.
what the outcome, we don't know what the verdict is gonna be. But in the meantime, we're gonna make a statement to show there is no place for this in our community. You know?
Wait, some people from Zoom want to say something. True. Yeah, Trudy, you wanted to, I'm really sorry, but I'm really.
It's
I
okay,
apologize for Zoom.
we've just been,
Can't hear,
can you hear me now?
can't hear.
Can you hear me now? I'm not
Oh.
muted.
Hold on.
My volume's up.
Can you hear me now?
No, but she's not muted.
I'm not muted.
No, you're gonna need to type it into the box.
Okay, so
I
we,
can hear you, Trudy.
Is this it? I tried to- Sorry. Okay,
I'm
okay.
sorry, Trudy, we can't hear you, but I see you're not muted. Sure your volume.
I just wrote it in. Look at the note. Look at
Oh,
the.
okay. No. Oh, that might be it.
Can you see the chat?
Oh, now it's
Yeah, I
good.
can hear
Now
you.
it's good.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we've just been trying to say,
I'm so sorry.
there's a bunch of people, you should probably read the comments later.
Okay, hold on, Trudy, we
Afterwards,
can
read the comments. We can't hear Ally, so she's got to move closer when she speaks.
Sorry about
That's what we were trying to say is we couldn't hear Ally, and anybody who comments, we can't hear. Also, I just want to say, I think it's important that Dave's killer bred. Dave wasn't a killer. He was in prison, but he wasn't a killer. And that's kind of important.
Okay,
Um,
there you go. There's judgment.
Yeah,
Even
the
I
word.
think, I'm trusting Google, but I just don't want to say somebody's a killer if they're not, but he was in prison. So, so the rest of the story is accurate. But anyway, that's all. We just couldn't hear Ally, and we've been trying to say it and nobody's. Thank you. Goodbye. Thank you.
I've never thought of Zoom discrimination before, but I really have sensitivity.
Don't report
to it
us.
now. Okay, now speak up. Can you hear Sue Gottlieb?
No, you're gonna have to repeat whatever they say.
Sue is corroborating
Oh, wow.
Zoom discrimination.
So I'll
She's
tell
saying
you guys
she'll-
one thing, a good takeaway, okay? A takeaway that we could all walk away with, okay? Because it's such a big, broad topic, and every single day we are faced with the same challenge again and again of how to judge people for the good or for the bad, or it's just, we have constant new content, especially in COVID. Every going to the grocery store is a new opportunity to judge or to judge favorably. But here's a takeaway, okay? To ask yourself every day, who am I going to judge favorably today?
That's great.
And to just one person, whether it is the spouse or someone else, whatever it is, the colleague, who am I going to actively going to judge favorably?
I like that. That makes a lot of sense to me. It's just,
Concrete.
it's concrete, but it's also, it's a positive a way of, yeah, beautiful. I love that. I'm gonna do that.
Who are you? I'm alive. And you're alive. Things I know is creative.
Can't hear good.
He's-
I'm judged.
So
Right.
Stephen is saying, does
So
what,
multifaceted.
right, that we are so many things.
Right.
So if a person does very wrong, is that very wrong,
Right.
all of them, or is that,
Right.
and defining them? Okay, Adrian, yeah. Right. Right. Adrian's talking about the
Right.
tension between social justice, standing up to what's wrong and potentially and being very careful of judgment. But I really like what you said about just what that's so manageable.
Right. But I'm not, I'm trying to figure out words to answer your question, because it's a very, that's like a really huge question. How do you sum a person up? Is it, I mean, as I think it was you, Katie, is it the actions that you're judging? Is it the person that you're judging? Is it the behaviors? Is it inborn? Is it learned? Is it like, who are you? Right? Like, you know, as Jews, we always say, we are a soul, we have a body, right? Where are we? Are we leading from our soul? Are we leading from our animal instincts, our body? Like, what leads us? So it's a really good question to think about. Like, what are we judging? Are we judging a person, like when we say a wicked person? Who is a wicked person? Was Hitler born wicked? Like, I agree with you, probably, right? I mean, that's like
Right.
the extreme answer. Stalin, like how could you be born wicked? You know, in Israel, and unfortunately, you know, you have the small country of Israel, you have the Jews, you have the Palestinians, you have every type of right, and a lot of them don't get along. There's so many initiatives to bring peace between neighbors, right? But it's actually very hard. It's hard to do it because sometimes young children are they're being raised to hate. How
Right.
can you teach love if you're
It's in their baby food.
it's like you see pictures of like a crib with a baby with a gun next to it. Yeah, like it's almost, how could you fight that? But yet you can, because you see children only know love. You could teach them hate, but they really, like, a child is so pure, right? Like, as they get older, they might really harbor hate, but I think children are pure, and a soul is born pure, and a soul is born godly.
But you also said that truly evil, if they're, I mean, again, where's the line? But we all know people are truly evil historically, and those people we are not obligated to judge them.
Well, we see it in the Torah. In the Torah, even we have Amalek, like the
Right.
nation Amalek, and it's a mitzvah to erase their name, to like, it's right. They're not supposed to be a good nation. The Torah speaks about that.
When someone goes to court for a crime, right, being judged. What is it,
Right.
And it's that crime. They can, you know, has DUIs for the past, or if they're not allowed to bring in
Right.
that evidence.
It's-
And so we're
right.
judging that particular murder. or that
Right,
particular
right.
theft.
Yeah.
They're being judged.
Right.
Mhm.
It's so true.
Yeah, that's
You have to
interesting.
kind of keep everything else in the back, like,
Right.
focus
So,
in.
I mean, that's not a spiritual judging, that's.
No, but it's a good point.
Okay,
Well, I
well,
know, but if you.
Yeah. So-
You know, kind of a homosexual, then is murder.
right, they're separating the
Right,
person. from-
so. The person, do you judge the person or do you judge the action? The person is capable of good action and bad action, they are, right? So how do you judge?
Well, I think that the goal is to try to pull ourselves away from trying to be a judge, unless we are a judge.
Unless we're asking.
Right.
Unless you're in the judge,
Right,
like,
yeah,
that's your
yeah.
lane, that's your lane.
Right? Well, we're gonna judge favorably. Okay. By the way, the mitzvah in the actual Torah, because we spoke, Pirkei Avot is the oral Torah, but in the Torah, when it talks about judgment, it says, "B'tzedek tishbot et amitecha," with righteousness you shall judge your fellow, and it is speaking in judgment, in the courtroom,
Yeah,
in law.
that is
That's where
actually what- yeah.
that's where it stems from. But the oral Torah, there's many times that it speaks about judgment in many different of our sources. And it's talking about, yes, because we all judge, even if we're not the judge or, you know, the lawyer or whatever it is, we're human beings judge. So if
In
we're
other
gonna
words,
do
the
it,
Torah is talking about a
judge
court of law, but
That's where
the
it stems from.
commentaries.
Yeah.
Pull from it.
Yeah.
Human, right, yeah,
But when I
right.
He said earlier to protect-
That's what he was
to
saying, the
negotiate
judgment
for
is
the
there
world
to protect
without
us.
judgment.
You need judgment, you need ego to
Right.
create, you need judgment to
Sure.
stay safe, you need judgment to discern. It's all right.
So when you say like the exercise of like, who, you know, every day, like, who am I gonna?
judge
judge
favorably.
favorably? I find, but when I'm judging people, I don't know. Like, it's comes to you, like, someone in a grocery store.
So maybe it's at the end of the day to say, who did I judge
Right, I
favorably?
feel like
To get
I
into the
can't wake up,
mindset, right,
can't
right,
drop the day
right.
actions happen.
Well, you're saying you can't know
moment.
what's gonna come
I
up.
don't like, I'm always spending this money. Like, it's not like today I'm gonna, more like, at the end of the day, it's like, what were the actions of my day? And I was mad at that lady in the grocery store, or whatever happened. I feel like you can't always decide, you don't know what's gonna happen.
So
during the
maybe,
day.
so yeah, I totally, that's very true and real. Like, we're just going through the day. But maybe take a minute at the end of the
At the
day to
end of
say,
the
who
day.
did I judge favorably? And that'll kind of, I mean, I'm
Keep it in your
imagining
head.
that if we do this, I just started doing this. This is a new thing that someone told me, like, break it down. It's too big judgment. Like, one
Yeah,
person to
right.
judge a little bit more favorably, right? Than you would have. So if you do it maybe at the end of the day and think, well, who did I do that to? Then maybe we'll build that muscle.
Catch it, like, if
Yeah.
someone cuts you off,
Right.
and then like take a minute later and say, okay.
Yeah.
Maybe they maybe
Right.
they were running.
Right,
maybe
right,
they were-
right. 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 But try to like lean on the favorite, like, right? Unless there's some danger. Okay, this was so great. It's okay. I want to tell you guys about tomorrow, by the way. Okay, so
We said turn off the recording?
well, they could stay if they
Oh,
want,
okay.
because maybe you guys will want to join tomorrow. So
No,
11.
no, not that, not shut them off, shut the recording.
Oh, yeah, you can totally do that. Okay, so tomorrow is our regular spot for the Between Me and You class, but we're gonna do